At night, a children's summer camp is never completely silent. Even when every cabin appears dark and every child is supposed to be asleep, the place continues to breathe. Wooden walls contract as the temperature drops. Floorboards respond with quiet creaks. Pine trees surrounding the camp sway slowly, brushing against one another, producing sounds that feel almost deliberate. For most people, this kind of background noise is comforting. It suggests life continuing at a low, steady rhythm. It reassures parents that nothing is wrong, that the environment is controlled, predictable, safe. But on this particular night, the silence felt different. It was not empty. It was restrained, as if the camp itself was holding something back. The camp was located far from the nearest city. No highways nearby. No passing traffic. Phone signal faded almost completely once the buses crossed the final dirt road leading through the forest. Parents were told this isolation was intentional. Distance meant safety. Distance meant focus. Distance meant fewer outside risks. Children would be protected here, away from distractions and danger. No one considered that danger does not always arrive from the outside. Lights went out precisely at 11 p.m. The schedule was strict and rarely questioned. Cabins darkened one by one. Counselors completed their final checks and returned to their assigned quarters. Children fell asleep quickly after a long day of running, shouting, swimming, and trying to exhaust themselves enough to forget they were away from home. Less than an hour later, the silence broke. The sound was sharp and brief. A scream, cut short almost as soon as it began. It was not the confused cry of a nightmare. It carried clarity, finality. Those who heard it later described it the same way. It sounded like someone who understood in that exact moment that help was not coming. Doors opened in several cabins at once. Children stepped into hallways barefoot, half awake, trying to understand why adults were suddenly moving so fast. Some began to cry immediately. Others stayed silent, frozen, sensing that asking questions would not make things clearer. Lights turned on unevenly. A flashlight slipped from someone's hand and hit the floor. A name was shouted too loudly, followed by an abrupt stop, as if the speaker realized it should not have been said. By the time the first emergency vehicles reached the camp entrance, half the children were still asleep, unaware that anything had happened. The other half already knew that something irreversible had occurred, something that would change the way they remembered this place forever. Because that night, a crime took place inside a children's camp. Not sudden, not accidental, and not without warning. The camp itself had never attracted attention. Its name was ordinary, easily forgettable. It had existed for years, quietly operating every summer season. Parents recommended it to one another casually. Former campers returned as counselors, convinced that the place was familiar, almost harmless. That familiarity was its greatest defense. The daily routine was rigid. Wake-up calls, morning exercises, breakfast at the same time every day, scheduled activities, quiet hour, dinner, evening programs, lights out. The repetition created structure, and structure created trust. Adults believed that predictability equaled safety. The camp director rarely involved himself directly with the children. He preferred distance. He spoke calmly, never raised his voice, and maintained authority through silence more than words. Conversations often ended simply because people felt uncomfortable continuing them. He was respected for his experience and credited with maintaining order. Under his leadership, nothing serious was supposed to happen. Supervision of the children was handled by someone skilled at reassurance. She knew exactly how to speak to parents, which concerns to acknowledge, which questions to redirect. She focused on reports, checklists, and documentation. As long as the paperwork looked correct, the system felt stable. The counselors were young, most were students. Some were former campers themselves. They were trusted because they were familiar. They were exhausted because the work never truly stopped. Over time, exhaustion made certain things easier to ignore. A door left slightly open, footsteps after lights out, a sound that did not quite fit. Not because anyone intended harm, but because acknowledging small irregularities meant creating bigger problems. One cabin housed 13 children, different ages, different personalities, shared space. shared routine. Among them was a boy who rarely drew attention to himself. He followed rules without comment. He did not complain. He did not try to impress anyone. He watched, sometimes too closely, as if waiting for confirmation of something he already suspected. There was a girl who seemed to notice everything. She remembered who felt lonely, who struggled at night, who needed quiet reassurance. Her presence smoothed over conflicts and made the group feel balanced. But even she sometimes fell silent, listening to sounds beyond the walls. The oldest boy in the cabin tested boundaries openly. He argued with counselors, stayed out of line, pushed against restrictions. Adults labeled him difficult but predictable. Someone who caused noise, not real problems. And because of that assumption, they stopped looking carefully. The first days passed without incident. Parents received phone calls telling them everything was fine. Children adjusted. Laughter filled the common areas. The camp appeared exactly as it was meant to. That was when the smallest inconsistencies began to appear. A child mentioned hearing footsteps at night when no counselor was supposed to be on duty. Another woke up suddenly, unable to explain why. In the duty log, a time entry was corrected, barely noticeable unless someone knew exactly what to look for. No one stopped to question it, because everything still looked normal. And when everything looks normal, concern feels unnecessary. By the middle of the session, fatigue had settled into the camp quietly. It did not arrive as a sudden change. It crept in slowly, blending into routine until it became difficult to separate exhaustion from normal life. Children became more irritable. Small arguments appeared more often and lasted longer than they should have. Some struggled to fall asleep. Others woke in the middle of the night with no clear reason, lying still and listening until morning. Counselors felt it as well. Their patience shortened. Their attention narrowed. They began making small decisions based on convenience rather than caution. If a child left a room after lights out, they were sent back without further discussion. No notes were written. No follow-up questions were asked. It was easier that way. At the far end of one corridor, a ceiling light began to flicker. It did not fail completely. It pulsed just enough to be irritating. Someone mentioned it. Someone else said they would report it. Days passed. The light remained unchanged. Children avoided that section of the hallway without being told to. They moved a little faster there. They stayed closer to the walls. No one explained why. At night, several children reported hearing voices. Not shouting, not arguing. Voices that sounded calm, controlled, adult. They could not always make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, familiar, reassuring, the kind of voice that normally signaled safety. When this was mentioned, adults responded predictably. Forest acoustics, echoes, imagination. Children were told that the mind fills in gaps when it is tired or afraid. After hearing that explanation, most children stopped talking about it. Not because the sounds stopped, but because they understood that continuing would change nothing. The quiet boy withdrew further. He began sitting out of group activities. When asked if something was wrong, he said no. Once, when pressed, he said it was better not to leave the room at night. When asked why, he did not answer. The girl who once helped everyone began sitting with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She listened more than she spoke. Sometimes her eyes followed sounds that others ignored. The oldest boy began leaving the cabin after lights out. Never for long, always returned. Always with an explanation ready. He could not sleep. He needed the bathroom. He got lost. Each explanation was accepted, because challenging it would require effort, documentation, confrontation. 2 days before the night everything changed. A spare key was reported missing. No one could say exactly when it disappeared. It was likely for a storage room located between buildings. The loss was noted in a logbook. Someone suggested it would turn up. It did not. That same evening, a child asked a counselor a quiet question. What should you do if an adult breaks the rules? The counselor smiled without thinking and said that adults know what they are doing. The child nodded and never asked again. Outwardly, the camp continued to function. Activities followed schedule. Meals were served on time. Reports were sent. Parents were reassured. But inside the structure, something was shifting. Small oversights accumulated. Unasked questions piled up. Signals that should have demanded attention were absorbed into routine until they lost urgency. By the time the tension became noticeable, it was already too late to reverse. The night arrived without warning. Lights out proceeded normally. Children returned to their bunks. Counselors completed rounds. The corridor lights dimmed. The counselor on duty walked slowly, tired but alert enough to believe nothing unusual was happening. She noticed the flickering light again and made a mental note to report it in the morning. Morning felt certain. Near midnight, a sound reached her from the corridor. Not loud. Careful, the soft closing of a door. She stopped walking, listened. The hallway appeared empty. The sound led her toward the storage room between buildings, a place rarely entered, a place that should have been locked. The door was slightly open. She hesitated, called out softly. No response. When she turned on the light, her mind resisted what her eyes registered. Not shock, but refusal. The kind that delays understanding just long enough to make it unbearable. There was a body on the floor, objects scattered, signs that required no explanation. For a moment, she did not scream. Understanding came first, then fear. Then the sound that shattered the camp's silence completely. Doors opened. Children stepped into hallways, confused, frightened, searching adult faces for answers that were not there. Some cried immediately. Others froze, sensing instinctively that nothing would return to normal. Counselors moved quickly. One called emergency services. Another gathered children away from the corridor. Someone stood motionless, unable to process what they were seeing. One child was missing. The name was spoken quietly at first, then louder, repeated, as if repetition could undo reality. When emergency lights appeared between the trees, the camp ceased being isolated. Everything hidden spilled outward. This was not a random act. It was the result of many small decisions made over time. The camp was sealed before sunrise. Police tape stretched across entrances that had once been decorated with welcome signs and schedules for games. Officers moved quietly, deliberately, careful not to disturb the children who had been gathered into one place and told to wait. They were given blankets, warm drinks, permission to use their phones. No one explained what had happened. Waiting became its own form of punishment. Some children stared at the tables in front of them, tracing patterns in the wood. Others cried openly, clinging to counselors who no longer knew what to say. A few sat in complete silence, their bodies still, their faces distant, as if withdrawing inward was the only way to remain intact. Police worked without urgency, but with precision. They photographed corridors, measured distances, documented every object in the storage room. What had once been an unremarkable utility space became the center of the entire investigation. The duty logs were seized early. Pages flipped slowly. Corrections stood out immediately. Times overlapped. Entries contradicted one another. It appeared that someone had attempted to blur the sequence of events, to create uncertainty where clarity should have existed. Counselors were interviewed separately. Their statements were calm, controlled, nearly identical. Each described a normal night. Nothing unusual. No warning signs. The sameness itself became suspicious. The missing key surfaced later. It was found where it should never have been. The moment it was placed on the table, the room changed. Silence stretched longer than necessary. Everyone understood that the key had been more than an object. It was proof of access. Proof of opportunity. The oldest boy was questioned again. At first he spoke confidently. He had rehearsed his answers. But small inconsistencies appeared. Minor contradictions. Pauses where none should have existed. When the key was shown to him, he did not ask how it was found. He lowered his head and stopped speaking. Children were interviewed gradually. Some could not speak at all. Others spoke only after returning home, surrounded by familiar walls and parents who listened without interrupting. They described footsteps at night, calm voices calling names, doors opening where they should have remained closed. A feeling that something was wrong long before anyone acknowledged it. Each account alone sounded uncertain. Together they formed a pattern. Investigators began reconstructing the days leading up to the night. The flickering light, the ignored reports, the missing key, the unchecked corridors, fatigue, assumptions, trust placed where it should not have been? The camp was closed the same day. Buses arrived earlier than planned. Parents embraced their children tightly, as if afraid that letting go would allow something else to take them. Some children cried during the ride home. Others did not speak at all. The storage room was sealed, as if closing a door could contain what had already escaped into memory. By the time formal conclusions were issued, the camp stood empty. The sign had been removed, gates locked. Nature slowly reclaimed paths where children once ran. Official language flattened the events into manageable terms. Negligence, failure of duty, procedural violations. The oldest boy admitted partial responsibility. He did not explain his actions. He acknowledged understanding the consequences. The court accepted that. But the court could not address the deeper truth. It could not assign blame to exhaustion, to routine, to the habit of postponing action, to the repeated belief that silence meant safety. The counselor who discovered the body never returned to work with children. Some nights she woke unsure whether it was a smell, a sound, or a memory that had pulled her from sleep. Others carried the same quiet realization. That one extra question, one additional check, one refusal to ignore discomfort might have changed everything. The missing child's name was spoken softly, carefully, as if volume itself could cause harm. Later, her belongings were found neatly arranged, untouched, as though someone had tried to preserve order until the very end. An investigator closed the case and said, off record, that this crime did not arrive suddenly. It grew, slowly, fed by overlooked details and unchallenged assumptions. The camp never reopened. The silence remains. And if you stand there long enough, listening to the wind move through the trees and the empty buildings settle into decay, one thought becomes impossible to ignore. The most frightening part is not what happened. It is how long it went unnoticed. In the weeks that followed, the story of the camp began to change shape in the public eye. At first, it appeared in news reports as a brief, disturbing headline. A tragic incident. An ongoing investigation. Limited details. Officials urging patience. But for the people directly involved, time did not move forward in neat segments. It stretched, folded back on itself. Every day brought the same questions, repeated endlessly, with no answers that felt sufficient. Parents replayed phone calls in their minds, the tone of voice they used when saying goodbye, the reassurances they accepted without hesitation, the decision to trust an institution simply because it had existed for a long time. Counselors were placed on administrative leave. Some were cooperative, others withdrew completely. A few insisted that nothing could have been done differently, that the system had functioned as designed. Investigators disagreed. They reconstructed timelines hour by hour, minute by minute. They examined how responsibility was distributed, and more importantly, how it was diluted. When everyone is responsible, no one truly is. Fatigue emerged as a constant factor. Long shifts, minimal rest, emotional labor dismissed as part of the job. The expectation that young adults would manage situations far beyond their training. The flickering hallway light became symbolic, not because it caused the crime, but because it represented a mindset. Something was visibly wrong, acknowledged briefly, and then ignored. It did not seem urgent. It did not demand immediate action, so it remained. The missing key followed the same pattern. Logged, noted, deferred. Each delay reduced the sense of risk, even as the actual risk increased. Children described how trust worked inside the camp. They explained that adults were authority by default. Voices that sounded confident were obeyed. Instructions were followed. Questioning felt dangerous, even disloyal. This was not manipulation born from fear. It was conditioning born from routine. When one child said they felt uncomfortable, others stayed silent. Not because they disagreed, but because discomfort had already been explained away. The narrative had been set. Experts later explained that environments like this create their own internal logic. Signals are filtered through expectations. Anything that does not match the expectation of safety is reframed until it fits. The court proceedings were brief compared to the length of the investigation. Legal responsibility narrowed quickly. Individual guilt was addressed. Structural failure was acknowledged, then quietly set aside. Sentencing concluded the official story. But for those who lived inside it, there was no conclusion. Children returned to school changed in ways that were difficult to articulate. Some developed anxiety around authority figures. Others struggled with sleep. A few became hypervigilant, scanning rooms instinctively, listening for sounds others ignored. Parents noticed these changes but often lacked language for them. They spoke of maturity, of quietness, of growing up too fast. The counselor who had made the rounds that night replayed her decisions endlessly. The thought that morning had felt guaranteed haunted her. She had believed, like everyone else, that tomorrow was promised. It never is. Years later, the campgrounds remained closed. Attempts to sell the property failed. The buildings deteriorated. Nature reclaimed paths and common areas. What once felt lively and controlled now appeared hollow. Locals avoided the area, not out of superstition but discomfort. The knowledge that something irreversible had happened there lingered without explanation. No memorial was built, no plaque installed. The absence felt deliberate. A quiet agreement not to fix the story in place, but also not to forget it. The case continued to be studied quietly by professionals in child safety and institutional risk. Not as an anomaly, but as an example, a demonstration of how danger often arrives not through dramatic warning signs, but through familiarity, through routine, through trust that goes unexamined. As time passed, the case stopped appearing in headlines. New stories replaced it. Public attention moved on, as it always does. What remained was a quieter, heavier aftermath that unfolded away from cameras and official statements. Families were left to rebuild routines that no longer felt stable. Ordinary moments became charged with anxiety. A child being late to return home. A door left unlocked. A sudden silence in the next room. These small things now carried weight they never had before. Some parents questioned every decision they made afterward, whether they were being too protective or not protective enough. Trust, once broken, did not return easily. Children struggled in ways that adults often failed to recognize. Fear did not always appear as tears or panic. Sometimes it showed up as compliance taken too far, a refusal to speak up, an instinct to obey without question. Therapists who later worked with the children noticed similar patterns. Many had learned that discomfort could be dismissed by authority, that being calm and reasonable did not guarantee safety, that rules, while important, could also be used to create silence. The girl who never returned became a presence defined by absence. Her name was spoken less frequently over time, not because it mattered less, but because speaking it hurt too much. Her parents avoided interviews. They requested privacy that few could truly understand. When her belongings were finally cataloged, investigators noted the careful arrangement. Items placed neatly, nothing damaged. The order itself raised questions that no report could answer. The boy who had remained quiet during the camp never fully explained what he had noticed. When asked later why he did not speak sooner, he said only that he did not believe it would change anything. That answer unsettled those who heard it more than any detail of the crime. It suggested a deeper failure, not just of supervision but of belief. Institutions depend on predictability, on routines that make them manageable. But predictability can also create blind spots. When every day looks the same, deviation becomes invisible. Investigators later noted that no single mistake caused what happened. There was no dramatic failure point, no moment where someone clearly chose wrong over right. Instead, there were dozens of moments where nothing was chosen at all. A decision postponed, a concern minimized, a signal reinterpreted. Together, they formed a structure where harm could exist unnoticed. Training manuals were rewritten, protocols updated, new policies introduced. But those changes arrived too late for the people who needed them most. The camp itself remained empty. Weather eroded the buildings slowly. Windows cracked. Roofs sagged. Nature showed no awareness of what had happened there. People passing by described the area as quiet, but not peaceful. The silence felt different, not threatening, just heavy. In interviews years later, one investigator summarized the case with a sentence that never appeared in official documentation. He said the crime did not rely on secrecy. It relied on comfort, on the belief that familiar places are inherently safe. That belief, he said, is the most dangerous one. Long after the investigation ended, long after the court delivered its verdict and the paperwork was archived, the questions remained. Not legal questions, human ones. The kind that do not resolve through procedure or punishment. People who had worked at the camp avoided speaking about it openly. When asked, they often said they followed the rules, that they did what was expected of them, that nothing in their training had prepared them for what happened. All of that was true, and none of it was enough. Experts who later examined the case pointed out something uncomfortable. The environment was not chaotic. It was not neglected in obvious ways. It was orderly, structured, calm, exactly the kind of place people trust without hesitation. That was the problem. Children learn quickly how authority works. They learn who speaks and who listens, who asks questions and who is expected to accept answers. In the camp, authority was everywhere. Schedules, rules, voices that sounded confident, adults who appeared in control. Trust was built into the structure itself. When something felt wrong, the structure absorbed it. Doubt was reframed. Fear was explained away. The system corrected the discomfort instead of examining it. The quiet boy carried that lesson with him into adulthood. Years later, he described the camp as the moment he learned that silence could be taught. Not demanded, taught. Through repetition. Through routine. Through watching what happens when concerns are dismissed. The girl who tried to help others left behind a different lesson. Her absence became a reference point. A reminder that kindness and attentiveness are not always enough when systems fail. Her parents eventually moved away from the area. They declined memorials, declined anniversaries. They chose to remember her privately in ways that did not require explanation. The camp itself became a blank space on maps. Ownership transferred quietly. Development plans were discussed and abandoned. No one wanted to build there, not because of fear, but because of memory. Memory has weight. Standing on the grounds years later, there was nothing visibly remarkable. Trees, dirt paths, weathered wood. But the absence of sound felt deliberate, as if the place itself resisted being used again. The investigator who closed the case retired not long after. In a rare interview, he said the most unsettling part was not the crime, but how ordinary everything had seemed before it happened. He said there were no villains hiding in shadows, only people doing what they had always done. That, he said, was the warning. Crimes like this do not always announce themselves. They do not always arrive with chaos or visible danger. Sometimes they emerge quietly, shaped by neglect that feels harmless in isolation. A door not checked. A light not fixed. A question not taken seriously. Individually, they mean nothing. Together, they create opportunity. The camp never reopened. Children never returned. The routines ended. The structure dissolved. What remained was a story that refused to disappear completely. Not because it was shocking, but because it was possible. And that is what makes it unbearable.